Are you yearning to wake up each morning and ignite a new meaning and purpose in life and beyond? Welcome, everyone. I'm Michael McGinnis, an award-winning author, speaker, and educator on human potential, and your host on You Can Do It, inspiring growth, igniting potential. Life presents us with challenges that serve as catalysts for growth. The pivotal question is, how do we respond to these challenges, or better yet, opportunities? Do we adopt a victim mindset or rise to become victors? Our goal here is to guide and inspire you to master the most amazing journey you have, your life. You Can Do It starts now. Hey everyone, Michael McGinnis here with You Can Do It, the show that it's about you achieving your full potential. And really, that's what we're all about. It's the study of human potential, and it's the realization that we really can, by our choice, choose to be so much more of our potential, to be our full potential in this life. Well, today I'm honored. I've got a great guest here who is living the message of being the human potential. Let me just quick share her screen. This is her homepage right here. So Tonia is awesome. You can see her website as toniajohnson.com over here and read more about her life and her work. In addition to that, our show is all about the nature of what personal growth, self-discovery, and enlightenment is. It's the framework. And I bring up that image right here, which is what I shared in my very first episode, about that process. And through my years of research, focusing on human potential, what I realized is there were patterns. And there are patterns of which those who really pursued and became more of their full potential often followed. They often had to deal with struggle, trials and tribulations up front, and dealing with the kinds of issues or challenges they're facing in their life. That's personal growth. Self-discovery is where we begin to emerge by asking ourselves deeper questions. And ultimately is enlightenment, which is where our quest is to go beyond, to really be able to understand more about life itself. So let's meet Tonia here today. And Tonia can share a little bit about herself. What I can say is I know she's a geologist in environmental engineering, but her story goes way beyond that. And that's the chance that you'll have a chance to hear today. She's authentic. And what we're all about here is being authentic. That's what great self-awareness is all about. Learning, being open, candid with our life stories, to be able to help influence others. And that's the epitome, I think, really of enlightenment. This is where we've done our work, cleaned our own house, we've discovered who we are, and now we're helping others. Tonia, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. That was beautiful, a beautiful introduction, and I am honored to be here with you today. The geology title, I would say, is just kind of scratching the surface. I am just excited about so many things in life. I mean, and that's kind of like the all-encompassing description of me. Geology being, study of the earth. And so that's kind of one thread I like to pull from. Another piece is kind of integrating that more of the social human side. Sciences. I love learning more about people, learning more about myself, and then integrating how all of that works in kind of the human mind in the space. So thank you for that, Michael. And I'm, again, just glad to be here.
Oh, that's fantastic. Isn't it funny how, as we look back, the choices that we've made about our careers, all sort of played into who we are today, right? You just said that, the study of the earth and really that's really, led to some of that spiritual development and things that you've done. So that's outstanding. Well, let's jump in, right? Again, it's a show about being authentic, being open, candid with ourselves. Growth, right? It's all about becoming our full potential, but it begins with a choice. And very often the stimulus for a lot of people in their growth, a decision to choose to grow, is very often associated with pain and suffering. And so let's talk about that how did your growth process begin? Was that characteristic of yours as well, pain and suffering?
Absolutely, Michael. And I love talking about pain and suffering because it is such a key component to growth and potential. It's our medicine if we allow it to be so. Yes, and I'd say for me, it started from my earliest memories. I think of coming into this world hot, whereas just there was already like a lot stewing inside, that was kind of ripe for me, moving forward in kind of this growth and self-discovery process.
Well, that's fantastic. And I remember when we had talked about it too, is this concept, although we have pain and suffering, as I certainly
Mhm.
did, and I shared my own first debut session, and but it was met by wearing a lot of facades and
Mhm.
really what we appeared like on the outside, very different from what we were feeling on the inside. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, yes, it does. I think of all of the life experiences going through, kind of starting at the foundational level, substance abuse from within my family unit, sexual assault in college, loss of many close friends, former boyfriend from tragic accidents. So all of these things, um, led to kind of that potential for alchemy. And the wild part about the facade, what you're talking about, what comes up for me is that on the outside, everything looked fine, right? I had everything together. I had a marriage that looked good from the outside. I was a successful professional from the outside. I was, taking care of my physical body, but everything inside was screaming. It was just it was kind of a mess, to say the least.
Yeah, and I can really relate to that too. I can recall even people saying, "Oh, Mike, you're the model of the American dream." They were seeing
Mm,
my girlfriend at the time, and the fact that I had this great job, perceived by others, and that was this definition of success. Yet, when on the inside, I was depressed, high anxiety, suicidal ideations, all of these things that were just characteristic of life that them, but I did such a good job of hiding and masking those.
mhm. Yes, that certainly resonates, and I think, I feel that that's kind of a common thread with, all of us today. It feels very, very much, we're just trying to hold it together. We're trying to make it work, not realizing that, inner turmoil that we carry with us. And until it keeps speaking so loud that you can't keep going on that way.
What I appreciated up front you had said is I enjoy talking about pain and suffering. And that is this transformation because I know for my own self too is I wouldn't be who I am today now if it wasn't for the pain and suffering. So I see it in a whole different perspective. And that's the part that I hope is a message that goes across is it's okay if you're suffering. I know that tendency to want to hold things in. But at the same time, it's so important to be able to let things out and be able to just have those that you find, whether it's counseling support or others, that you can express in confidence what's really going on, to be
Mhm.
able to confront and deal with it, because we know that level of stress can kill you, as it did my brother, which was my major wake up call that I had that no, I am not going to have that happen to me. I'm now going to pursue going forward. So, and that brings up this sort of sense of a wake-up call. So here's this pain and suffering that we have, and something along the way drives us to really to change from this victim mindset, blaming others, blaming life, blaming our parents, whoever the case may be, or all of them, to really starting to take charge of your life. Can you talk about that point in time of your growth?
Yes, I'd love to. It's interesting because I think through all of those, the turmoil, the hardships, all of those pieces, I could see moments and opportunities that, I could have used to make that shift, to that wake up call, but it was like I wasn't ready to go there. It was actually, in early 2013 when my son was born, and you know, I had a I had this amazing human, right? This experience that as a parent, you hear about this beauty and all these the joyful moments and everything that comes through. And in that moment when he was born, I remember feeling absolutely nothing. It was kind of like I had checked something off of my list. And um it's in that moment, I realized that it had been probably 15 years since I really felt anything. Um, no, no anger. I was in complete autopilot. It was like I was a zombie walking around, just a shell at that point, because all of that inner turmoil was so intense that that's how I was able to manage it in the moment. And so from that moment, I realized, I'm like, I have to do something else. I can't do this anymore.
Wow. Well, first of all, one thing is to just acknowledge, Tonia, that your openness, your authenticity. I mean, that's one of the key things is as we do grow and become that way, we become a role model, we become an inspiration for others when we open up and people realize, oh, it's okay to do that way. It's okay to feel that way. And help me, and then that's where we become sources of inspiration. And I
Mhm.
appreciate that too, is I'll never forget that moment of my son being born and the change that it had in my life. And I
Mhm.
looked at it, and instead of feeling nothing as in your case, I felt this amazing thought, which realized that, after growing up in a really traumatic past, I was not. And I remember I would not repeat that pattern. And now
Mhm.
that was that trigger to change things. So it's funny how sort of the birth of a child really had an amazing impact for each of us.
Mhm. I love that.
So the first stage of growth is personal growth, right? That's the part of where we really have to deal with our own issues. And as I talk about, is if you don't, what unfortunately happens is you carry forward your issues throughout your life. These are the kinds of issues, like for me, self-esteem, unworthiness, all were the things that carried out through much of our life. They're buried deep in our subconscious. What was that stage like for you? What did you do to start turning your life around?
Oh, Michael. So many things, right? Because there's so many different paths we can go down. But I think if I was to, identify my first step into that space was yoga. I started exploring yoga, breath work, really started looking more at my nutrition. So how I was, what I was putting into my body on a physical level. That was those were some of the main starting points for me. And then just starting to notice how, I'm just gonna say nasty, some of the self-talk and self-dialogue and the limiting beliefs that kind of live within, starting to allow those to express little by little as I could, over time. I mean, it's been a long journey for sure, but that was that was the starting point for me.
Wow. And were there any tools or methods you used to help you through that phase?
One thing in looking back that I didn't realize was so important, because it took a really long time to realize it, was how important just support is. Support in the physical realm, those around us, whether it's, friends or family, whatever that is, through workshops, through, taking in content, but then also too, for me specifically, is my relationship with spirit and and bringing into my faith and what that means to me specifically, and that I am not alone. And I think a lot of the turmoil for me early on, was just this feeling of separation, and just feeling like I'm completely, in this life by myself. And I think that it for me has been such a huge shift in how I show up every single day. And I do that through ritual. So it's, wake up in the morning in gratitude for the things that feel good. So it's like really shifting how each day I'm, showing up as myself.
That's powerful stuff too, as I know I talk a lot about the tools, and I'll be talking about those in future sessions. And because I pursued a lot of elements up front, just due to the nature of my background and the trauma and counseling. You had mentioned workshops, all of the personal growth books that's out there, journaling,
Mhm.
affirmations. And what I really liked is the fact that you brought up support. And I reference support groups all of the time,
Mhm.
because it was different. It was so refreshing to be able to work with others who could relate to this versus other people that I knew who they couldn't relate, couldn't understand, had their bias to it, discriminated against it, or whatever the case may be. And I remember 12-step groups, for example, and right up front, I love the 12-step groups because it really introduced the concept of higher power, because at that point I was not really that oriented towards concept of God as I grew up understanding God after having
Mhm.
gone through everything in my life too. But it's great how you also integrated some elements up front of your life to really to get you through that first transition from where you were towards where you wanted to go.
Yeah, it feels good. And just knowing that it's a journey and there's never, we're not looking for the final destination, right? So there's this opportunity for constantly just enhancing our experience here right now as we are. And I kind of love that because I don't feel like I'm racing to the finish line, right? Um, Being present in the moment, I think is just part of that whole experience. So it kind of is counter to our culture as well here, which is a challenge.
They are, and that's a great thing that you bring up too, is counter to our culture, right? Is these are the things that introduce early on the need to develop and of that connection with others because you really have to develop courage and strength to work through this. It's easy to succumb to what others think, others tell you what to do, but you've got to drive that yourself and to be able to make some of these tough decisions early on.
Absolutely.
And in that next stage, self-discovery, so you've done some of the basics, you've been able to land on your 2 feet, you're starting to pursue life in a better perspective. Self-discovery is where we start asking ourselves deeper questions. Who do I want to be? What do I want to do with my life? What are my beliefs and values? What does happiness and success mean? Do I adopt what society has sort of told me those things to mean, or do I define them myself? And really, what are my next steps? What do I want to now do with my life? Any thoughts on relating to that stage in your life?
Oh, that one has been a suitcase to unpack for sure. Once I was able to peel back the first few layers, then I realized that I wasn't really aligned with what my purpose is here and why I'm here. Yes, I was good at what I was doing. I was, my job, I had a great job, working for a really good company. And yet it just wasn't, it didn't feel quite right. It didn't feel quite like me. And so I just started exploring that a little bit more, and I won't go through all the details, but essentially, I realized that, my love for geology and, study of the earth is actually, seeing it through the lens of being in service to mother earth and to spirit, and I've done that now through kind of like the lens of a shaman. And that's, so it's like weaving in geology, weaving in business, weaving in my heart-led path of being a shaman. So it's like bringing all of that in, and with that, it's really there's a lot of inner work that happens through that process. It's almost they talk about it like as a shamanic death, because you're shedding your old self in order for your new skin to see the light of day. And it feels incredible. And it's also, liberating, but there's just a lot of the heaviness you get to let go of in order to breathe a new life and breathe your life anew.
Wow. And again, it's powerful. It was this point sort of comes into play where deeper thoughts start coming in, and you started off with that is I want to start thinking about a purpose. And yet, for most of us, we subscribe to society or mainstream here. It says get a good job, have a family, have the 2.2 kids and things, and we follow suit
Mm-hmm.
with that because we don't know any differently until these times sort of shake us up. William Bridges calls them wake-up calls, where we
Mm-hmm.
begin to ask ourselves different questions. And it sounds like for you, it was this quest to start finding a purpose. You had a job, you were doing that work, but you were starting also to experience some deeper thoughts and perspectives. And you just mentioned about the shamanic interest and focus in your life. And that sort of leads into the next stage of enlightenment. Tell me about a little bit more of that. How did these thoughts develop, and what did you do now to start developing what we would call your spirituality?
So I love that question because I think, it's in all of us and it's just whether or not we recognize it. And I know for me, it was very early on as a kid, back when I mentioned I came into the world hot. I mean, I had a very strong and almost confusing real spiritual belief at a very young age. So much so that I would ask to go to church, but I didn't really understand why, because it wasn't really something we practiced at home. And then when I had the trauma happen, some of the trauma that came in early on, I just completely cut off that. And so then later on in life, when I'm going through this, things that are helping me come back to myself, come back home, it was like everything that shifted, is when you say like the enlightenment piece, it was an opportunity to come back home to myself, come back home to spirit, um, and to really just realize that I had the choice to love being here right now. And it was really just it was a choice. And I knew that I didn't want to go on any longer. And it was interesting because once I kind of said, like, I surrender, everything shifted for me. I just felt this support. It was like the elephant that had been on my shoulders for most of my life, was lifted, that I didn't even know I was carrying because I didn't have an awareness. It was just, I was stuck on this path that was over and over and over again that just became part of my existence.
Yeah, that's again key to this is I love what you said. Two things that still stand out is I came into my life hot. It's a line I'm going to remember because I think it's so true for many of us. And then there was another concept that you just said there is the importance of being able to surrender. And it's we grow up, we're told to take control of our life, to take charge. Our ego plays a big part in that. And yet there comes a point where we're just struggling. And I found the same thing. It's so important. I still do it today. Moments of which are stressful experience, I remind myself of the first three steps, in the 12-step program. And I'll sort of modify those to sort of be in my current belief system there too, is the first thing is I can't. And then the second thing is higher power, however you choose to define a greater entity can. And then the third part is to let go. And that to me really relates to the concept of
Mhm.
surrendering, and allow that sense of I can't control this right now. I can't deal with this right now, to let it go. And that allows some force, some entity, some process to be able to help guide you back into the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I love it because it's because what you're describing to me, how I see it is kind of that curiosity that we all have inside of us too. It's like that inner child curiosity, um, which I love that.
That's fantastic. So one of the things is since our audience is out there, they're often interested in this whole concept of growth for themselves to achieving their full potential. Any thoughts or guidance that you would share with them?
I'm thinking of each person is like a pillar of light, each person, and whether it feels that way or not, um, recognizing that we all have what we need. We are whole. So that's my belief. And from that place, deciding first you want more. So just saying, I want more. I don't know what that looks like. That's okay. And then just start seeing what's out there. I mean, listening to this right now, listening to Michael, what Michael's, bringing into it with You Can Do It. It's, this beautiful higher vibration of looking at in your own life, what kind of life do you want to live? What kind of experience do you want to have? And start bringing in more light, bringing in, whether it's through the books you take in or just spending time in nature, but really noticing how everything affects your light and allowing for that to be your true north, your inner compass.
Oh, what great words to be able to share. Because again, I go back, and all of who I am today came as a result of a lot of taking risks and discovering things that were out there that I never knew were even in existence at that point, but they did. And that's, as our show is, that first part, as you see, is inspiring growth. And the inspiration really is I would leave it to you, relates so much what we just heard from Tonia, is the fact is that if you just at some level, even if it's deep within, just reiterate the words is I'm okay, even though you don't feel that way, and know that you're not alone and that over time there'll be pieces. Fortunately, we live in an age today where there's so many things out there to help guide us forward. And something I'd say is that, I had no idea where to go at that time, but wasn't it amazing that stuff started to happen in my life, that started to come into my life? And I use the word synchronistically, and I love that word. I define it as, I've heard it defined as God's way of being anonymous, is just the things that started to develop in our life to allow us to move forward. And that's the ignite potential part, right? That's where when we get that element in there, we realize, hey, I can get through this. I can. It's not easy. It's tough. And that's that part where, as we go back to what Tonia had mentioned, getting support and help and utilizing the tools that are out there to allow you to get through that part, develop that courage and strength, because then, wow, once you have those elements and the quest is to continue to go forward in life, to pursue that enlightenment and understanding life, as I define it, to wake up every day with meaning, purpose, love, and joy. Hey, we were all there. And so the message, as I always share, is that if Tonia can do it, if there's so many other people who have been there can do it, you can do it too. And that's where the name of the show came forward. Any final thoughts? Would you like to share, Tonia?
I just say, I am happy that we are all here at this time, and there's so much opportunity to grow and live and love together. Thank you,
Outstanding.
Michael.
Oh, Tonia, it was such a pleasure having you on board here too. And I'd love to have you come back. And definitely for everybody, be sure to visit her website, toniajohnson.com. A lot of good information there and another source of inspiration, right? It comes from many people in many places. The key is they've often been there, worked through it, which is why we can then better be there to help inspire you moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael McGinnis here with the show You Can Do It. Be sure to tune in next time as we're going to roll up our sleeves and start doing some of the work as we enter into that first stage of personal growth. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks again, Tonia.
Thank you.
I'm Michael McGinnis, and you've been listening to You Can Do It, Inspiring Growth, Igniting Potential. Tune in every second and fourth Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Transformation Talk Radio. As a recognized educator, author, and speaker on human potential, let's learn together how to make the most out of this life and to put a ding in your universe. This is the incredible journey of personal and spiritual growth, self-discovery, and enlightenment. For more information, visit growhumanpotential.com.